everyone, and welcome back to Johnny K Picks. And in this video, I'm going to go over my full card, picks and predictions for UFC Vegas 48, Walker versus Hill. So before I get into my highlights from UFC 271, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe if you're new or if you haven't already, and don't forget to turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on any of my content. Also, a little news for this week, I'm looking to do a live stream with Cody from Blood MMA Bets, and we're just going to go over all our picks for this week. So if you're interested in that, be on the lookout, and go ahead and check out his channel when you get a chance. Okay, so UFC 271 just happened this weekend, and yeah. My picks weren't the greatest, also my bets weren't too much better either. And if you look at this picture up here, it kind of reminds me of my high school science test with all that red. It was a bloodbath, let me tell you that. But I will say though, it was kind of a weird night. For my picks that ended up losing, they all looked really good in the first round and looked like they had a chance of winning or getting the finish in the first round. But once the second round hit, they all got finished. So it was a weird chain of events that happened this weekend. And it comes with the territory when you predict fights like that. But it was just kind of crazy that all those fights, they ended up getting finished in the second round. Some of my highlights of the night was the O'Neal-Motta fight. So, alright, first things first. I know it was Roxy's retirement fight, and that's all great and all, but how in the world can one of those judges give Roxy that fight? I mean, come on. There was no way Motta won any round of that fight, let alone the fight overall. And I'm going to be honest, that's probably one of the worst scorecards I've ever seen in UFC history. But I do want to focus on O'Neal's performance. Her striking looks really good and it's vastly improving. And I thought she was going to try to take down Motta and maybe get a ground and pound KO or even try a submission, but she didn't want to go for takedowns. She was going to show everyone that her striking is better, and I definitely saw that. Another highlight for me was the Tuivasa-Lewis fight, and I'll admit I totally didn't see this one playing out like that. I figured Lewis was going to end up getting the knockout eventually, but Tuivasa took some good shots from Lewis, and he ended up getting close with him in the clinch and landed a couple elbows and dropped him. So now I'm really interested to see who he's going to be matched up with next. Maybe it might be the winner of Volkov and Aspinall, maybe even the winner of Blades and Chris Daukaus. Or hell, maybe it might even be Gane, who knows. And some other fighters that had really good performances were Douglas Silva de Andrade with that huge comeback win. Ronnie Lawrence dominating his fight, but the third round was a little dicey, but he still looked good. Kyler Phillips putting on a show for everyone. And of course, Bobby Green putting on a striking clinic against Nasrat. Honestly, that was probably one of the better performances of the night. So overall, it was a really good, entertaining night. Okay guys, so without further ado, let's get to my picks and predictions for UFC Vegas 48. So the first fight we have is Mario Bautista versus Jay Perrin. Bautista is 8-2, 28 years old, 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. And Perrin is 10-4, 28 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. So Bautista was supposed to fight Taha, but Perrin literally just accepted the fight like within 2 hours of me filming this fight. So I didn't really get a chance to do any research on Perrin. But with that being said, I'm still going to go ahead and pick Bautista to win this. I do think Bautista is going to be the better fighter in this matchup. He's really good overall, well-rounded fighter. His striking is pretty good. He does consistently move forward. And from the stats that I looked up with Perrin, he's more of a grappler. He does have a few submissions on his record, but I just think Bautista is going to push the pace. He's going to wear him down in the second and third round. I do think he's going to get a KO finish in the second or third round. So with my pick, I'm going to say Bautista wins by knockout. Next fight we have is Jonathan Pearce versus Christian Rodriguez. Pearce is 11-4, 29 years old, 6 foot with a 71.5-inch reach. And Rodriguez is 7-0, 24 years old, 5'7" with a 71.5-inch reach. So my pick in this fight is going to be Pearce to win this one. So Rodriguez is making his UFC debut on short notice as well. And although he did look impressive in his win in the Dana White Contender Series, I just think Pearce is going to be the more well-rounded fighter in this matchup. Pearce does have pretty good striking himself, but he's also a pretty good grappler. And I think the path to victory for Pearce here is to get the fight to the ground. Because like I said, Rodriguez is a good striker and a good boxer, but we haven't seen him tested in the mat yet. And the way I see this playing out is Pearce is going to start going for takedowns and he's going to eventually end up getting him down. And I can see the fight ending shortly after there. So with my pick, I'm going to go ahead and say Pearce gets a submission win in the second or third round. Moving on up the card, we have Jesse Strader versus Chad Anheliger. Strader is 5'2", 30 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. And Anheliger is 11'5", 35 years old, 5'6" with a 64-inch reach. So this fight is a little bit interesting to me because I looked at the lines here and I do think they're a bit too wide. But nevertheless, I'm going to go ahead and say Anheliger wins this fight. So Strader's going to have the slight height advantage and he's also going to have a 6-inch reach advantage. But Anheliger is a really good fighter. He's solid. He has good striking. He's a good grappler as well. And also, coming into this fight, he's on a 9-fight win streak and against some pretty good competition as well. To me, Strader does have some cardio issues the later the fight goes on. So I think if Anheliger can survive the first round, I think it's only going to favor him later on. But the way I see this playing out is I think Anheliger is going to mix in some takedowns throughout the fight and survive the first round. And once that happens, I think he's going to eventually end up getting the knockout in the second or third round. Next fight we have is Diana Belbita versus Gloria de Paula. Belbita is 14'6", 25 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. And de Paula is 5'4", 26 years old, 5'5" with a 67.5-inch reach. So for me, this is a coin flip fight, but I'm going to go ahead and side with Belbita to win. So both fighters are mainly strikers, and I definitely see this fight playing out on the feet. But the main reason why I did pick Belbita to win is her volume. She averages almost 7 strikes per minute landed, which is about double what de Paula lands. And I know both fighters are really young right now in their career, but Belbita does have way more experience, which I do think that's going to play a big part in this fight. And as with most women's MMA fights, I do think this fight's going to go the distance. I don't see any finish. And I just think Belbita is going to be the more active fighter. She's going to throw more punches and land more. So with my pick, I'm going to say Belbita wins by decision. Moving on up the card, we have Skelly versus Mark Striegl. Skelly is 18'3", 36 years old, 5'11", with a 73.5-inch reach. And Striegl is 18'3", 33 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach. So in this fight, I'm going to go ahead and say Skelly's going to win. So for me, I just think Skelly's overall the better fighter everywhere in this matchup. I think he's the more technical striker. I think he's the better grappler. In the wrestling department, it might be pretty close because Striegl does have good takedown accuracy. But if Striegl does get Skelly down, he's going to have to worry about his submission game because he's pretty good on his back as well. And honestly, I just really don't see a path to victory for Striegl to win. And another thing about Striegl too is his cardio seems to fade as the fight goes on. So with my pick, I'm going to say Skelly does pretty much whatever he wants to do, whether it's on the feet or on the mat, and he's going to get the job done by decision. Next fight we have is Jessica Rose Clark versus Stephanie Egger. Clark is 11'6", 34 years old, 5'5", with a 67-inch reach. And Egger is 6'2", 33 years old, 5'6", with a 68-inch reach. Alright, so before I say my pick, as always, warning, this is a low-level women's MMA fight, so anything can happen. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and say Clark wins. I'm not too high on both these fighters, so I really don't want to get too crazy into detail, but basically what I think is going to happen is Clark is going to have zero problems taking down Egger whenever she wants. And when that happens, I see Clark staying in top control and just throwing a couple punches here and there, just enough to stay busy. And it's not going to look pretty. This fight's going to be kind of long and boring, let's be honest. But hey, that's how Clark's going to get the win here. I don't see a slugfest happening between these two. So with my pick, I'm going to say Clark grinds out a long decision. Moving on up the card, we have Gabriel Benitez versus David Onama. Benitez is 22'9", 33 years old, 5'8", with a 71-inch reach. And Onama is 8'1", 27 years old, 5'11", with a 74-inch reach. Okay, so the first fight that I'm really excited for actually, and with my pick, I'm going to say Onama wins. In Onama's last fight, He made his UFC debut on short notice against Mason Jones, and he looked pretty impressive actually for taking that fight on short notice. Onama's striking is really good, and he has really good cardio as well. The only little red flag for me though is he does get taken down pretty easily, but throughout that fight against Mason Jones though, he did get up every time he got taken down, and he looked like he could still go on in the third round. And with Benitez, he's also a very good striker, and he has really good leg kicks. But with Onama having the height and reach advantage, and I do think he's going to be able to eventually catch Benitez later in the fight. If Benitez does implement some takedowns, he might have a better chance of winning, but I don't think he's going to because he's more of a striker. So with my pick, I'm going to say Onama wins by KO in the second round. Next fight we have is Joaquin Buckley versus Abdul Razak Alhassan. Buckley is 13-4, 27 years old, 5'10" with a 76-inch reach. And Alhassan is 11-4, 36 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. So this fight was supposed to happen actually a while ago, and I'm going to stick with my initial pick and pick Buckley to win this one. So both guys are really good strikers and really powerful, but where I see a huge advantage for Buckley is his cardio and wrestling. So in Alhassan's last fight against Malkoun, he got taken down 8 times. So even if Buckley can mix in a couple takedowns here and there, that's going to pay huge dividends in this fight. But if he does choose not to, it's going to be a lot closer on the feet because like I said, both guys are good strikers, they're both powerful, and one of them can knock out each other at any time. But the way I see this fight playing out is I do think Buckley is going to go for a takedown here and there. He's going to wear down Alhassan on the mat, and I don't think he's going to be able to get the finish on the mat, but I do see Buckley winning this by decision. Next fight we have is Jim Miller versus Nicholas Motta. Miller is 33-16, 38 years old, 5'8" with a 71-inch reach. And Motta is 12-3, 29 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. Okay, so we have the OG Jim Miller, potential gatekeeper now, versus Motta, who's making his UFC debut. And it pains me to do this, but I'm going to pick Motta to win. So Motta's going to have the striking advantage, but Miller is a wizard on the ground, and he does have a really good submission game. So Motta's going to have to use his takedown defense a decent amount in this fight, I think. I will say, though, at this stage in Miller's career, he has about 1 round of gas in him, and after that, he just slowly fades as the fight goes on. So if Motta can survive the first round and stuff all of Miller's takedowns if he goes for them, then I do see Motta eventually taking control of the fight and winning this fight by decision, and maybe even a late knockout in the third, but I'm going to go ahead and say Motta wins by decision. Next fight we have is Parker Porter versus Alan Baudot. Porter is 12-6, 36 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. And Baudot is 8-2, 34 years old, 6'3 with a 79-inch reach. Alright, so main card fight. Yes, I did not stutter when I said that. Main card fight. So in the battle of the heavyweights, I'm going to go ahead and say Parker Porter wins this one. So as with most heavyweights, they're both mainly strikers, but Porter can actually take the fight to the mat. And both guys do throw a lot of volume and also absorb a lot of damage, so I don't think this fight's going to last for too long. But a couple of the reasons why I am siding with Porter is I do think he has the better cardio. He does push the pace a little bit more than Baudot. And if he can get this fight to the mat, I don't think Baudot has any answers for that. But I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say Parker Porter does push the pace on Baudot. And in the second round, I think he's going to start gassing out a bit. And Porter's going to end up getting the takedown and just rain down ground and pound on him and get the ground and pound knockout in the second round. Alright, co-main event time. We have Kyle Daukaus versus Jamie Pickett. Daukaus is 10-2, 28 years old, 6'3 with a 76-inch reach. And Pickett is 13-6, 33 years old, 6'2 with an 80-inch reach. Alright, so here we go. My arch nemesis Jamie Pickett is fighting again. And yes, I am picking against him again and gonna say that Kyle Daukaus wins this fight. So for the record, I do think Daukaus is the better fighter in this matchup, and he's going to have the huge advantage on the mat and submission game. But if this fight does stay striking, Pickett does have a chance because he does have power in his hands and he has the longer reach. And I know Pickett's been on a roll here lately, winning 2, but I just don't think he's that great of a fighter. And I think this is more of a get-right fight for Daukaus. And the way I see this playing out is I think eventually Daukaus is going to push him against the cage or get the well-timed takedown. And then once the fight gets the mat, I think Daukaus is going to wrap up a rear naked choke. So with my pick, I'm going to say Daukaus gets the rear naked choke in the second round. Main event time, we have Johnny Walker versus Jamal Hill. Walker is 18-6, 29 years old, 6'6", with an 82-inch reach. And Hill is 9-1, 30 years old, 6'4", with a 79-inch reach. So this fight was supposed to be the co-main event before Fiziev and RDA got moved to a different night. But I'm pretty excited for this fight, and both guys are pretty similar fighters. But I'm going to go ahead and say Hill wins this one. So as I said, both guys are very similar. They're both really dangerous strikers that can knock out anybody at any time. But I will say, I think Hill is a little bit more dangerous, at least right now. And other than the Paul Craig fight where he dislocated his elbow, he's looked pretty impressive. And I'll admit, I did have Jimmy Crute beating Jamal Hill last fight, and he proved me wrong. And with Walker, I don't think he's looked that impressive as of late. I know he recently changed gyms, and I don't know if that's the factor, maybe why, but he looks a little bit hesitant at times. And if he's going to be hesitant, Hill is very explosive, and he's super fast with his punches. But the way I see this fight playing out is I think Hill's going to eventually end up catching Walker because his chin's a little suspect, and his striking defense is only about 40%. And I don't think it's going to be as easy as the Crute fight for Hill, but as I said, I do think he's going to get the knockout, and I'm going to say he's going to get the knockout in the third round. Alright guys, so those are my picks and predictions for UFC Vegas 48. Thank you everybody for watching, and please go ahead and hit that like button for me on your way out. So I know this card isn't the greatest on paper because there's a lot of cancellations and fights are moving around left and right, but hey, we'll get through this together. And as always, happy fight night.